The blood on Harriet Doyle's cheek had dried by the time she reached the dusty outskirts of Bisbee, Arizona Territory, 1879. She clutched her 5-year-old son William to her side with one arm while her 8-year-old daughter Sarah stumbled along beside her, fighting exhaustion. 3 days on foot through unforgiving terrain had taken its toll, but the bruises from her husband's final beating hurt worse than her blistered feet. "Just a little farther," Harriet whispered, though her parched throat made the words barely audible. The setting sun cast long shadows across the mining town nestled between copper-rich hills. She had nothing but the clothes on her back, 2 hungry children, and a name the only hope her dying mother had given her before tuberculosis claimed her last breath. "Find Cole Ironwood if trouble comes," her mother had said. "He owes our family a debt he can never repay." Harriet had never met this man, knew nothing of him beyond her mother's cryptic words. But when her husband's drunken rage had escalated to the point where Sarah's arm was broken and William cowered in corners, she knew they had to flee. Her husband James was foreman at the largest mine in their hometown of Tombstone. No one would stand against him there. "Mama, I'm scared," William whispered, his small hand gripping her tattered skirt. "It's all right," she lied, pushing back a strand of auburn hair from her face. "We're going to be fine." The main street of Bisbee buzzed with evening activity. Miners fresh from their shifts crowded the saloons. A piano played somewhere, its cheerful notes at odds with Harriet's desperation. Her heart hammered against her ribs as strangers glanced at her with suspicion or pity. A woman with 3 children and no husband was always a subject of speculation in these parts. "Excuse me," she called to an elderly man sweeping the boardwalk in front of a general store. "I'm looking for someone named Cole Ironwood." The man's bushy eyebrows rose. "Ironwood? That loner who runs the ranch outside town?" He scratched his beard. "What business you got with him, madam?" "Please, it's important," Harriet said, fighting to keep her voice steady. The old man studied her bruised face, then the children. His expression softened. "Head north out of town, follow the creek for about 3 miles. Can't miss his place-only ranch with that big lightning-struck oak at the entrance." He leaned closer. "But I should warn you, madam, Ironwood don't take kindly to visitors. Been that way since he lost his wife and boy to the fever 6 years back." Harriet swallowed hard. "Thank you." Night was falling fast when they finally spotted the ranch. A modest 2-story house stood in a clearing, lamplight glowing from a single downstairs window. A barn and corral stretched to the right, and beyond them, grassland rolled toward distant mountains. "Wait here," Harriet told her children, helping them sit beneath a cottonwood tree at the edge of the property. Sarah looked up, cradling her poorly splinted arm. "What if he sends us away, Mama?" "He won't," Harriet said with more confidence than she felt. "Rest now." The walk to the front door seemed endless. Harriet's legs threatened to buckle with each step. She raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What if this man refused them? What if her mother had been wrong about him? They had nowhere else to go, and James would be looking for them by now. Taking a deep breath, she rapped on the wooden door. Seconds stretched into a minute. She knocked again, louder. Finally, she heard heavy footsteps. The door swung open to reveal a tall man with broad shoulders and a face weathered by sun and hardship. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples framed piercing blue eyes that widened slightly at the sight of her. "Mr. Ironwood?" Harriet asked. His expression remained impassive. "Who's asking?" Harriet straightened despite the pain shooting through her body. "My name is Harriet Doyle. My mother was Alina Crawford before she married." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps, or pain. "My children and I." Her voice broke. The words she'd rehearsed countless times during their desperate journey suddenly felt inadequate. Tears welled in her eyes as she blurted, "We were beaten, sir. Mama said you might help." Cole Ironwood's face remained stoic, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the door frame. He looked past her toward the tree where her children huddled. "3 of you?" he asked gruffly. Harriet nodded, suddenly aware of how they must appear filthy, bruised, desperate. "I don't take in strays," he said, his voice low and rough. Harriet's heart sank. She had gambled everything on this moment. "Please," she whispered. "We'll work. I can cook, clean, tend gardens." "Sarah's only 8 but smart as a whip, and William, I work alone," he interrupted, looking away. "Always have." Harriet felt the last of her hope crumbling. "Is there somewhere in town we might—" "Town gossip's worse than a henhouse," Cole muttered. "They'd have word back to whoever did that to your face within a day." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "Bring your children. You can stay in the barn tonight, got clean hay and blankets. Tomorrow we'll figure something else out." Relief washed over Harriet. "Thank you," she breathed. Cole stepped onto the porch. "Don't thank me yet, Mrs. Doyle. I ain't promising nothing beyond tonight." What Harriet couldn't know as she turned to fetch her children was that Cole Ironwood was already making silent calculations where to add another bedroom, how much lumber he'd need, whether his supplies would feed 2 more mouths until he could get to town. Because despite his gruff demeanor, the moment he'd seen her standing battered but unbroken on his doorstep, something long dormant had stirred in him. The lonely cowboy had no idea that these 3 strangers would forever change the course of his solitary existence. The barn was cleaner than Harriet had expected. Cole led them to a corner where fresh hay had been piled and covered with canvas. "It's not much," he said, lighting a lantern and hanging it from a beam, "but it's dry and warm enough." Sarah stood slightly behind her mother, wary eyes fixed on the tall stranger. William, too exhausted to be afraid, had already collapsed onto the makeshift bed. "Is your arm broken?" Cole asked, nodding toward Sarah's crude splint. The girl nodded, eyes downcast. "My husband did it 3 days ago," Harriet said quietly. "I did what I could, but I'm no doctor." Something dangerous flashed across Cole's face. "Your husband." The way he said it was more statement than question, loaded with unspoken understanding. "James Doyle," Harriet supplied. "He's foreman at the contention mine in Tombstone." Cole's jaw tightened. "I know of him. Man's got a reputation." "We can't go back," Harriet said, her voice suddenly fierce. "I'll die before I let him touch my children again." Cole studied her for a long moment. "Get some rest, Mrs. Doyle. I'll bring food shortly." When he returned with a tray of beans, cornbread, and 3 cups of milk, he also carried a proper splint and bandages. "May I?" he asked Sarah, gesturing to her arm. The girl looked to her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "This will hurt," Cole warned as he knelt beside her, "but I've set my share of breaks." Sarah bit her lip but didn't cry out as he carefully realigned the bone and secured the splint. Harriet watched his large, calloused hands move with surprising gentleness. "You have a healer's touch, Mr. Ironwood," she observed. "Had practice," he replied tersely, not meeting her eyes. "My son took a fall from his first horse when he was about your boy's age." "Your son?" Harriet asked, then immediately regretted it when pain darkened his features. "Been gone 6 years now," he said. "Him and his mother both." He stood abruptly. "Eat while it's warm. There's a pump outside if you need water. Privy's behind the barn." "Mr. Ironwood," Harriet called as he reached the door. "Thank you." He paused without turning. "Lock this door from inside." "I'll come at first light." Dawn was breaking when Harriet awoke to the sound of hammering. She slipped outside while her children still slept to find Cole attaching new hinges to the storm cellar doors. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Coffee's on in the house if you want some." Harriet hesitated. "I wasn't sure if doors unlocked," he interrupted. Kitchens to the right. The house was sparsely furnished but immaculately clean. Harriet found the coffee pot still warm on the stove and poured herself a cup, savoring the rich aroma. The kitchen was well organized, with dried herbs hanging from rafters and shelves stocked with provisions. Through the window, she could see Cole working methodically, his movements precise and efficient. She was washing her cup when he entered, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. "Your children still sleeping?" he asked. "Yes. They've been through a lot," Cole nodded, pouring himself coffee. "Mrs. Doyle, Harriet, please." "Harriet," he amended. "I need to understand what I'm getting into here. Your husband, will he come looking?" She gripped the edge of the sink. "Yes. James is possessive and well-connected. He'll say I kidnapped his children." "Did you?" Cole's voice was neutral, without judgment. "They're my children too," she said fiercely, "and I did what any mother would do to protect them." Cole took a long sip of coffee. "I'm heading to town after breakfast. Need supplies if you're staying a while." Harriet's eyes widened. "You mean we can stay, for now," he said carefully. "At least until that arm heals and you figure out your next move." "I have no money to pay you," she admitted. "Didn't ask for any." He set down his cup. "But I won't lie to you. Having you here is dangerous for you and for me. If your husband tracks you here, there'll be trouble." "I understand," Harriet said quietly. "We can leave if—" "No," Cole interrupted. "You came here for help. I'm offering it." He looked away, discomfort evident in his stance. "I owed your mother a debt. I'm paying it now." "What debt?" Harriet asked. Cole's expression closed. "That's between me and Alina." He moved toward the door. "I'll wake your children. Breakfast in 30 minutes." The next few days established a cautious routine. Cole worked from dawn until dusk, repairing fences, tending livestock, and making improvements to the barn where Harriet and her children continued to sleep, despite his offer of the house. Harriet took over the cooking and cleaning, grateful to contribute something in return for his protection. Sarah and William remained wary of Cole, watching him with the suspicious eyes of children who had learned to fear adult men. Cole, for his part, kept his distance, speaking little and never raising his voice. On the fourth evening, Harriet found him on the porch after the children were asleep, smoking a cigarette and staring at the stars. "May I join you?" she asked. He nodded, offering her the single chair while he leaned against the rail. "Sarah asked me today if we're safe here," Harriet said after a comfortable silence. "I told her yes. I hope that's true." Cole exhaled a stream of smoke. "I've sent word to some people I trust. Ask them to keep an ear out for any sign of your husband heading this way." "You did that for us." "Don't make more of it than it is," he said gruffly. "Just being practical." Harriet smiled slightly. "I notice you're practical in many ways, Mr. Ironwood. Like the new bed frames you've been building in the barn loft when you think I'm not looking." The hint of a smile touched his lips. "Caught that, did you?" "I did. Just as I noticed you brought back primers and a slate for Sarah when you went to town yesterday." Cole shrugged. "Girl should learn to read proper." "She already knows how. I taught her myself." Harriet's voice softened. "Cole, why are you doing all this?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "Your mother saved my son's life once, when he was just a baby. Fever so high the doctor in Santa Fe had given up. Alina was visiting her sister next door. She came over with herbs and knowledge the doctor didn't have." His voice grew rough. "Stayed 3 days without sleep, bathing him in cool water, making him drink her remedies. Boy pulled through." "I didn't know," Harriet whispered. "No reason you would." He crushed out his cigarette. "Ironic that I couldn't save him when the fever came back years later, or my wife." Harriet impulsively reached for his hand. "I'm sorry." Cole stiffened at her touch but didn't pull away. "It was a long time ago. Not so long that it doesn't still hurt," she observed gently. He finally withdrew his hand. "Get some rest, Harriet. Tomorrow's another day." As the first week stretched into a second, the children began to relax. William took to following Cole around the ranch, asking endless questions that the cowboy answered with surprising patience. Sarah remained more cautious, but Harriet caught her smiling when Cole presented her with a small wooden horse he'd carved. "He used to make these for his son," Sarah told her mother that night as they settled into their beds in the newly finished loft. "He told me I could have all of them if I wanted, but I said one was enough." Harriet smoothed her daughter's hair. "That was thoughtful of you." "Mama," Sarah whispered, "are we going to stay here forever?" The question caught Harriet off guard. "I don't know, sweetheart. Mr. Ironwood has been very kind, but this isn't our home." "I like it here," William said sleepily from his bed. "Mr. Cole said I can help him with the new calf tomorrow." Harriet smiled, though uncertainty gnawed at her. They couldn't impose on Cole's hospitality indefinitely. Sooner or later, they would need to move on, find a place where James couldn't reach them. Yet the thought of leaving brought an unexpected ache to her heart. The first real test of their fragile arrangement came when Cole returned from town with a grim expression 2 weeks after their arrival. "Your husband was in Tucson 3 days ago," he said without preamble when he found Harriet hanging laundry. "Asking questions, showing your picture." Fear clutched at her throat. "How did you hear?" "Friend who runs a saloon there," Cole replied. "Says Doyle's offering a reward for information leading to your whereabouts." Harriet's hands trembled as she pinned a shirt to the line. "We should leave. I won't bring trouble to your door." "And go where?" Cole asked. "With winter coming and a child with a healing arm." "I don't know," she admitted. "But James won't stop looking, and when he finds us, if he finds you," Cole interrupted, "he'll have to go through me first." The steel in his voice matched the determination in his eyes. "I've spent 6 years alone on this ranch, Harriet. Got nothing much to lose." "You have your life," she argued. "A life isn't worth much if you can't look yourself in the mirror," he said quietly. "I failed to protect my family once. Won't fail again." That night, Harriet lay awake long after the children were asleep, replaying Cole's words. The fierce protectiveness in his voice had stirred something in her, something she'd thought dead after years of James's abuse. For the first time since her marriage, she felt the stirring of hope, not just for safety, but for happiness. The next morning, Cole was uncharacteristically absent when she came down to start breakfast. She found him in the barn, saddling his horse. "Going somewhere?" she asked. "Thought I'd ride the north boundary today," he said. "Check the fences before the weather turns." Harriet nodded, though something in his manner seemed off. "I'll have dinner ready when you return." He glanced at her, hesitated, then said, "Might be late. Don't wait up." It was well after dark when Harriet heard hoofbeats approaching. She'd kept food warm despite Cole's instructions, and had been sitting by the window, watching the yard with growing concern as hours passed. She stepped onto the porch as he dismounted, noticing immediately the way he favored his right side and the dark stain on his shirt. "You're hurt," she gasped, rushing forward. "It's nothing," he grunted, though his pallor betrayed him. "Come inside," she ordered, taking his arm. Now, in the lamplight of the kitchen, she could see the extent of the damage, a deep gash along his ribs that had soaked his shirt with blood. "Cole Ironwood, this is not a fence injury," she said as she helped him remove his shirt. "What happened?" He winced as the fabric pulled away from the wound. "Ran into some trouble in the hills." "What kind of trouble comes with a knife?" Harriet demanded, dipping a cloth in warm water. Cole's eyes met hers, the kind that was asking too many questions about a woman and 2 children. Harriet's hands stilled. "James sent men, just one," Cole said grimly. "Scout, most likely, tracking through the area, and you. What did you do to him?" Convinced him to look elsewhere, Cole replied, his expression hardening. He'll live, but he won't be reporting back to your husband any time soon. Harriet carefully cleaned the wound. This needs stitching. There's a kid in that cabinet, Cole said, nodding toward a corner cupboard. As she worked, her hands steady despite her fear, Harriet felt a strange intimacy in tending his injury. Cole sat stoically, barely flinching as the needle passed through his flesh. You've done this before, he observed. Many times, she said quietly, though usually on myself. Cole's hand suddenly covered hers, stopping her mid-stitch. I won't let him hurt you again, Harriet. I swear it. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For a moment neither moved, the air between them charged with unspoken emotion. I believe you, she finally whispered, resuming her work with trembling fingers. That night marked a turning point. Cole moved Harriet and the children into the house the next day, insisting the barn was too exposed. He gave up his bedroom, taking the small study downstairs for himself. New locks appeared on doors and windows. A loaded shotgun remained within reach at all times. Despite the undercurrent of danger, life settled into a surprisingly comfortable pattern. Cole taught William to ride on an elderly, gentle mare. Sarah's arm healed, and she revealed a talent for drawing that Cole encouraged by bringing her pencils and paper from town. Harriet expanded the kitchen garden and began putting up preserves for winter. In the evenings, they gathered around the fire. Cole, who had barely spoken more than necessary in those first days, began to tell tales of his youth in Texas, adventures driving cattle north, the beautiful places he'd seen in his travels. The children listened wide-eyed, and Harriet found herself drawn to the sound of his deep voice, the rare glimpses of humor, the subtle kindness that appeared more frequently as weeks passed. October brought cooler weather and the first frost. Cole and Harriet worked side by side to prepare the ranch for winter, their movements growing more synchronized, their conversations easier. She noticed how he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking, not with the possessive hunger James had shown, but with something gentler, almost wistful. One evening as they sat on the porch after the children were asleep, Cole broke their comfortable silence. You never talk about him, he said. Your husband. Harriet's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. What's to say? I married young to a man I thought was strong and ambitious. Didn't realize until too late that strength would turn to cruelty and ambition to obsession. How long were you together? 9 years, she said softly. The first 2 weren't so bad, but after William was born, something changed. The drinking got worse. So did his temper. Why stay so long? Cole asked, then immediately shook his head. Forgive me. That's not my business. No, it's a fair question, Harriet said. I stayed because I was afraid, because I had nowhere to go, because sometimes between the bad times there were good days when I could almost pretend we were happy. She looked out at the darkness. And I stayed because every time I thought of running, he would remind me that he'd find us, that no one would help us against him. Your mother would have helped, Cole observed. She died 3 years ago, Harriet said. Tuberculosis. On her deathbed, she told me about you, said if things ever got too bad, I should find Cole Ironwood. She gave a sad smile. I didn't have the courage then, not until Sarah's arm. Cole's hand found hers in the darkness. You're the bravest woman I've ever known, Harriet Doyle. Don't ever think different. The first snow came in early November, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. The children burst from the house at dawn, their laughter ringing in the crisp air as they discovered the joy of snowballs and snow angels. Cole joined them, showing William how to build a proper fort while Sarah pelted them both from behind a tree. Watching from the porch, Harriet felt her heart swell with a happiness she'd thought forever beyond her reach. These past months at the ranch had healed more than Sarah's arm. They had begun to heal wounds far deeper, for all of them. Cole caught her eye and smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed his weathered face. He said something to the children, then walked toward her, snowflakes melting in his dark hair. "You should join us," he said, stopping at the bottom of the steps. "William claims you throw a mean snowball." Harriet laughed. "I haven't played in snow since I was a girl." "High time to remember, then," Cole replied, extending his hand. She hesitated only briefly before taking it, letting him lead her into the yard where the children cheered her arrival. For the next hour, they were simply a family enjoying the season's first snow. No past shadows, no future worries, just the present moment filled with joy. Later, as they warmed themselves before the fire with mugs of hot chocolate, William curled against Cole's side while Sarah leaned against Harriet's knees. The cowboy caught Harriet's gaze across the hearth. The look they shared held a depth of feeling neither had dared acknowledge until now. That night, after the house had gone quiet, a soft knock came at Harriet's door. She opened it to find Cole standing in the hallway, uncertainty written across his features. "I'm sorry to disturb you," he said softly. "I just wanted to say—" He paused, struggling for words. "Today was good. Seeing you happy, the children playing, it reminded me of things I thought I'd never feel again." Harriet felt her pulse quicken. "I felt it too." "Harriet," he began, then stopped. "No, this isn't right. You're still married, and you came here for safety, not—" "Not what?" she prompted gently. "Not whatever this is becoming," he finished. "I don't want you to think you owe me anything." She stepped closer. "Is that what you think, that I'm here out of obligation, aren't you?" "I was," she admitted. "At first, now I'm here because—" She took a deep breath. "Because for the first time in years I feel like myself again. Because my children are happy. Because you've shown us what a good man truly is." His hand reached up to touch her face, his touch feather light against her cheek. "I haven't been good for a long time, just empty." "Not anymore," she whispered. For a moment, Harriet thought he might kiss her. Instead, Cole stepped back, his expression conflicted. "Good night, Harriet," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Good night, Cole," she replied, watching him retreat down the hall, understanding his restraint even as she longed for him to stay. The calm of their winter routine shattered 2 weeks before Christmas. Cole had ridden to town for supplies and to post letters, leaving Harriet and the children to decorate the pine tree he'd cut for them the day before. They were hanging ornaments he'd carved, tiny wooden stars and horses, when the sound of approaching riders broke the afternoon quiet. Harriet's heart froze. She rushed to the window, her worst fears confirmed at the sight of 4 mounted men entering the yard. In the lead, his face set in grim determination, rode James Doyle. "Upstairs," she hissed to the children. "Now, hide in the space behind the closet wall. Don't come out no matter what you hear." Sarah's eyes widened in terror. "Mama, go," Harriet urged, pushing them toward the stairs. "Remember what Cole showed you." When the children had disappeared, Harriet grabbed the shotgun from above the fireplace. Her hands trembled as she checked that it was loaded. Cole had taught her to shoot over the past months, but she had never fired at a human being. Heavy boots thumped on the porch, followed by a pounding at the door. "Harriet," James's voice bellowed, "I know you're in there. Open this door before I break it down." She moved to the window, keeping to the side as she called out, "Go away, James. The children and I aren't coming back." "Those are my children," he roared. "And you're my wife. You've got no right to take them." "I had every right after what you did," she retorted. "Sarah's arm hasn't even fully healed." "Accidents happen," James said, his tone suddenly wheedling. "I was drunk, Harriet. I've stopped drinking now. Come home. We can start fresh." "I don't believe you," Harriet replied. And we have a new home now. James's face darkened. With that cowboy, is that it? You've been playing house with Ironwood. His voice rose again. You think I don't know what's been going on? I've had eyes watching this place for weeks. Harriet's blood ran cold. If James knew about Cole, knew they'd been living together. It's not what you think, she began. It's exactly what I think, James snarled. But it doesn't matter. You're coming home today. Boys, break down this door. Two of the men dismounted and approached the porch. Harriet raised the shotgun, aiming at the door. I'll shoot the first man who tries to enter, she warned, her voice steadier than she felt. The men hesitated, looking to James. She won't shoot, he assured them. She hasn't got the spine. Try me, Harriet challenged. I'm not the same woman who left Tombstone, James. I won't be beaten again. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then from the distance came the sound of a galloping horse. All heads turned to see Cole Ironwood racing toward the house, rifle in hand, James's face contorted with rage. Ironwood. He spat. I should have known you'd steal another man's wife. Cole reined in his horse, dismounting in one fluid motion. His eyes took in the scene, the men at the door, Harriet at the window with the shotgun. His expression betrayed nothing as he approached, rifle held ready but not aimed. This is private property, Doyle, he said calmly. You and your men need to leave. Not without my family, James retorted. You've got no right to them. They came here of their own free will, Cole replied, and they'll stay or go as they choose. He glanced at Harriet. Are you all right? She nodded, never taking her eyes off James. This is between me and my wife, James said, stepping closer to Cole. This doesn't concern you. You made it my concern when you broke your daughter's arm, Cole said, his voice dangerous now. And when you sent a man to knife me. James smirked. Can't prove that was me. Don't need to, Cole replied. Sheriff already has the man's confession, signed and witnessed. Uncertainty flickered across James's face. You're bluffing, he said, but with less conviction. Try me, Cole echoed Harriet's earlier challenge. Walk away now, Doyle. Go back to Tombstone. File for divorce if you want, but leave Harriet and the children in peace. James's hand moved toward his hip where a revolver hung. I'm not leaving without James Doyle. A new voice rang out from the road. All heads turned to see three riders approaching, two men and a woman. The speaker, a tall man with a marshal's badge pinned to his coat, pulled up beside Cole. Marshal Crawford, James said, recognition and alarm crossing his face. What brings you to these parts? You do, the marshal replied grimly. Got a warrant for your arrest on charges of assault and attempted murder. That's absurd, James blustered. Who am I supposed to have assaulted? Your wife, the marshal said, nodding toward Harriet. And that scout you hired to kill Ironwood has been mighty talkative since we found him. James's face drained of color. He looked from the marshal to Harriet, then to Cole. This is a setup, he said weakly. No setup, the marshal replied, dismounting. Just justice long overdue. He turned to the woman who had accompanied him, a striking figure in a simple riding habit. Mrs. Judge Thompson here has signed the warrant herself. The woman nodded. Mr. Doyle, I've heard testimony from multiple witnesses regarding your treatment of your family. As circuit judge for this territory, I'm prepared to grant your wife a divorce on grounds of cruelty, with full custody of the children. James looked trapped. His hand twitched toward his gun again, but the marshal's deputies had already drawn their weapons. Don't be foolish, Doyle, the marshal warned. There's no way out of this. For a terrible moment, Harriet thought James might force a deadly confrontation. Then his shoulders slumped in defeat. You'll regret this, he said, his eyes boring into Harriet. All of you. Only thing I regret, Cole said quietly, is not stopping you sooner. As the marshal and his deputies took James and his men into custody, Harriet finally lowered the shotgun, her legs nearly buckling with relief. Cole was at her side in an instant, his arm supporting her. "How?" she whispered, watching as James was handcuffed and led away. "How did you arrange this?" "I didn't," Cole admitted. "I sent word to your cousin in Santa Fe months ago. Turns out she's married to Marshall Crawford now." They've been building a case against James ever since, gathering statements from people in Tombstone who witnessed his abuse but were too afraid to speak up before. Tears filled Harriet's eyes. "I never thought I'd be free of him." Cole's hand brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You are now," he said softly. "Truly free to decide your own future." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Harriet knew exactly what future she wanted. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow and a sense of peace that had settled over the ranch in the 2 weeks since James's arrest. The judge had granted Harriet's divorce in a special hearing, ruling that James's documented cruelty justified immediate dissolution of the marriage. He now awaited trial in Tucson, facing years in prison. The house glowed with warmth and light as Harriet put the final touches on Christmas dinner. Sarah and William had been buzzing with excitement all day, not just for the holiday but for the surprise Cole had promised them. "Is it time yet?" William asked for the dozenth time, peering out the window at the falling snow. Harriet laughed. "Soon, I think." Cole said he had a few things to finish in town. As if summoned by her words, they heard the jingle of sleigh bells outside. The children rushed to the window, then to the door, tumbling onto the porch with cries of delight. Harriet followed more slowly, her breath catching at the sight that greeted her. Cole sat in a handcrafted wooden sleigh pulled by his 2 strongest horses, their harnesses festooned with ribbons and bells. The sleigh itself was painted a deep green and lined with thick blankets and furs. "Who wants a ride?" he called, his face alight with a joy Harriet had never seen before. "We do," the children chorused, already running down the steps. Cole helped them into the sleigh, tucking blankets around them before turning to Harriet with an extended hand. "Madam, will you join us?" She took his hand, allowing him to assist her into the sleigh. As she settled beside him, his arm brushed hers, sending warmth through her despite the cold. For an hour, they glided through the snow-covered landscape, the children's laughter ringing in the crisp air as Cole pointed out fox tracks and winter birds. When they finally returned to the ranch, cheeks rosy and fingers tingling despite the blankets, Sarah declared it the best Christmas Eve ever. After dinner and the opening of modest gifts, new mittens and scarves Harriet had knitted, wooden toys Cole had carved, books ordered from back east, the children reluctantly went to bed, extracted promises that Christmas Day would bring even more delights. When the house had quieted, Cole and Harriet sat before the fire, sharing a bottle of wine he'd brought from town. "Thank you," Harriet said softly, "for making this Christmas so special for them, for everything." Cole looked into his glass. "Been a long time since I had reason to celebrate the season," he admitted. "Forgot how good it feels." Harriet gathered her courage. "Cole, I've been meaning to ask, what happens now, with the ranch, with us staying here?" He set down his glass, turning to face her fully. "What do you want to happen, Harriet?" "I don't want to impose," she began. "You've already done so much. That's not what I asked," he interrupted gently. "I asked what you want." Harriet took a deep breath. "I want to stay," she said simply. "The children are happy here. I'm happy here." "With you?" Cole's eyes searched hers. "As my housekeeper, my friend." "As whatever you'll have me be," she whispered. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small wooden box. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment." He opened it to reveal a simple gold band set with a single pearl. "It was my mother's," he explained. "I've been alone a long time, Harriet. Thought I'd always be alone after losing my family. Then you and the children showed up on my doorstep, and everything changed." Harriet's heart thundered in her chest. "Cole, let me finish," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I love you, Harriet. Love your children like they were my own. I want you to stay not as my housekeeper or my friend, but as my wife, if you'll have me." Tears spilled down Harriet's cheeks as she nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Cole slipped the ring onto her finger, then cupped her face in his hands. "I promised myself I'd be a gentleman," he murmured. "Wait a proper time after your divorce. But I'm finding it mighty hard to keep that promise right now." "Then don't," Harriet whispered, leaning into him. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. The second was deeper, years of loneliness and pain dissolving in the warmth of newfound love. When they finally broke apart, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "Proper wedding, whatever you want." "All I want is you," Harriet replied, "and a life where my children never have to be afraid again." "I swear it," Cole vowed, his arms tightening around her. "As long as I live." They were married on New Year's Day, 1880, in a small ceremony at the ranch with Marshall Crawford and his wife as witnesses. Sarah stood proudly beside her mother, while William carried the rings on a small pillow Cole had helped him make. Judge Thompson, who had granted Harriet's divorce, performed the ceremony with evident satisfaction. "By the power vested in me by the Arizona Territory," she pronounced, "I now declare you husband and wife." As Cole kissed his bride, snow began to fall gently outside the windows, a clean, white page on which to write their new beginning. Spring brought renewal to the land, and to the family that now called the Ironwood Ranch home. Green shoots pushed through soil warmed by lengthening days. Calves frolicked in pastures while their mothers grazed contentedly. The garden Harriet had expanded the previous summer now flourished under her experienced care, promising abundant harvests to come. Sarah, now 9, had blossomed in the safety and love of her new home. Her talent for drawing continued to develop, encouraged by both Cole and Harriet. She often accompanied Cole on his rounds of the ranch, sketching the landscapes and animals with increasing skill. The nightmares that had plagued her after the break with her father had gradually subsided, replaced by dreams she eagerly shared at breakfast, dreams of horses and adventures, and a future filled with possibility. William, at 6, had become Cole's shadow, absorbing everything the rancher taught him about horses, cattle, and the land. His laughter, once rare and muted, now rang freely across the yard as he chased chickens or practiced his roping skills on the wooden calf Cole had built for him. And Harriet, she had found herself again, reclaiming pieces of her spirit that James had systematically crushed over years of abuse. In Cole's steady love and unwavering respect, she rediscovered her own strength. Their partnership in running the ranch gave her a sense of purpose and pride she had never known in her previous life. As for Cole, the transformation was perhaps most remarkable of all. The solitary, taciturn cowboy who had reluctantly opened his door to desperate strangers had become the center of a loving family. The lines of grief that had marked his face had softened, though not disappeared entirely. He would always carry the memory of his first wife and son, but now those memories brought bittersweet comfort rather than crushing pain. On a warm May afternoon, as Harriet hung laundry in the gentle breeze, she felt Cole's arms encircle her from behind, his hands coming to rest on the slight curve of her belly. "How are you feeling today?" he murmured against her hair. Harriet leaned back into his embrace. "Better. The morning sickness seems to be passing." They had discovered her pregnancy just after Easter, unexpected but welcomed with joy by all of them. Sarah had immediately begun drawing pictures of the baby, while William solemnly promised to be the best big brother ever. "Did you tell the children we're going to Santa Fe next month?" Cole asked, turning Harriet to face him. She nodded. "Sarah's already planning what she'll wear to meet my cousin, and William wants to know if the marshal will let him see his badge." Cole smiled. "Crawford's a good man. Wrote that James's trial ended with a 15-year sentence. He won't trouble us again." "No," Harriet agreed, "he won't." She reached up to touch Cole's face. "Do you ever regret it, taking us in that night? Your life would be much simpler if you'd turned us away." "Simpler," Cole acknowledged, capturing her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "And emptier than I could bear." His free hand caressed her growing belly. "This life we're building, it's more than I ever dared hope for again." Harriet's eyes misted. "When I stood on your porch that night, I had nothing but desperation and my mother's word that you might help. I never imagined that the lonely cowboy would never leave you." Cole finished with a soft smile. "I knew the moment I saw you standing there, bruised but unbroken, that something important had changed. I just didn't recognize it as love until later." From the corral came the sound of children's laughter. They turned to see Sarah attempting to teach William how to do a proper curtsy, with comical results. "I should finish the wash," Harriet said reluctantly. Cole kept his arm around her waist. "It'll wait. Some things are more important." As they walked toward their children, Harriet reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from fear to safety, from despair to hope, from loneliness to love. The bruises James had inflicted had long since faded, replaced by the gentle touch of a man who cherished rather than controlled, who protected without possessing. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Harriet smiled up at him. "I was thinking that some wounds heal cleaner than others, and some debts create bonds that last a lifetime." Cole's arm tightened around her. "Your mother saved my son once. I couldn't save him when death came again, but I could save her daughter and grandchildren." His voice roughened. "And in saving you, Harriet, you saved me right back." As they reached the corral, William spotted them and came running, arms outstretched. "Papa, look what Sarah showed me." Cole scooped the boy up, tossing him high before catching him securely. "Show me, partner." Sarah joined them, her face bright with happiness. "It's for when we go to Santa Fe. I'm teaching him proper manners." "Is that so?" Cole asked with mock seriousness. "And what about ranch manners? Has he mastered those yet?" "Ranch manners?" William asked, wide-eyed. "Sure," Cole said, setting him down. "Like how to thank a horse for a good day's work, or how to listen to what the land is telling you." "Will you teach me?" William begged. "Every day," Cole promised, ruffling the boy's hair. "For as long as you want to learn." Sarah slipped her hand into Harriet's. "Mama, do you think the baby will be a boy or a girl?" "I don't know," Harriet replied. "What do you hope for?" Sarah considered this seriously. "A sister would be nice, but a brother would be good too." She looked up at her mother. "As long as the baby is happy here like we are." "The baby will be very happy," Harriet assured her, "and very loved." As the afternoon shadows lengthened, the family moved together toward the house, Cole with William riding on his shoulders, Sarah skipping ahead, Harriet walking beside her husband with her hand in his. Above them, a hawk circled in the clear blue sky, its cry a reminder of the wild beauty that surrounded their home. Later that night, with the children asleep and the ranch quiet under a canopy of stars, Cole and Harriet sat on the porch swing he had built the previous summer. Her head rested on his shoulder, his arm around her, their hands intertwined and resting on the new life growing within her. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real," Harriet murmured, "that we found each other this way." Cole pressed a kiss to her temple. I believe your mother had a hand in it. Alina always did know what was best for everyone." Harriet smiled at the memory of her strong-willed mother. "She would have loved seeing this you with the children, our home, the baby coming. She sees," Cole said with quiet certainty. "Just like my Margaret and little Thomas, I feel them sometimes watching over us, approving." Harriet turned her face up to his. "I hope so." "I know so," he replied, bending to kiss her lips gently. "Some loves don't end at death, Harriet, they just find new ways to live on." As moonlight silvered the land around them, Cole Ironwood and his wife contemplated the future stretching before them, a future built on the foundation of a desperate plea for help and the unexpected answer that had changed everything. "We were beaten, sir. Mama said you might help." In the years that followed, that plea became part of family lore, the story told and retold to their growing children, including the daughter born that November, whom they named Alina Margaret Ironwood. The story of how a broken family found healing, how a lonely cowboy found love, and how a debt repaid created a legacy of love that would endure for generations to come. For Cole and Harriet Ironwood, the journey that began in pain had led to a joy neither had dared to imagine possible, a joy built day by day, season by season, year by year, on the steadfast foundation of a love that had saved them both.